Welcome to Living Well with Alan Davey. I'm Rob Holding, your host, and Alan, good to have you back again.
Nice to be back again, Rob, thanks.
When we spoke last time, we talked about some of those lies that we believe that we're growing up with. Are we talking about like 3 or 4 big lies that we all believe, or is there just like a huge number of them?
I think there are a few that seem to crop up. There is a large number because children are good absorbers of information, poor interpreters.
Yep.
And so most of the lies we form are formed in our childhood, and they come from absorbing stuff and misinterpreting it. And so that misinterpretation has quite a wide spectrum.
Yeah.
So in a general sense, no, there are quite a lot of them. But in a more specific sense, there are 2 or 3 that I come across that are a little bit more common, and they all carry weight. But the 2 or 3 that I come across that seem to carry a really deep wound, the ones around I'm not good enough.
Yep.
Have I got what it takes? Those sorts of things, and they often actually come from home. Those ones seem to come from home. And if I was to get a little bit more specific about that, they do seem to come from probably a dad.
Yeah.
Probably a dad, or certainly a significant male figure in a life.
Have you ever figured out why it doesn't come from mum, or is it because mums are actually more nurturing and more loving and more kind?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right, actually. I mentioned to you before we started this morning, I write articles for our local paper.
Yep.
I wrote an article last month that went out in the paper, and I'll actually read it to you if you like, because that actually helps to unpack that a little bit. So this is a secular newspaper that I write for. It's a real privilege. I've been doing it for years now. So I'll just read what I wrote, if you don't mind. It's 500 words. While looking after one of our grandparents the other day, I said to Ginny, which happens to be my wife, I can't work out how such a small sippy cup can get everything so wet.
I'll stop you there. That'll be a grandchildren or not grandparent that you were looking after.
Oh, did I say grand?
Well, I suppose some grandparents have sippy cups.
I'm getting to the stage.
Do you want to start again? Rewind.
That's fair call. Okay. Thank you for pointing that out, Rob.
That's what I do.
Well, looking after one of our grandchildren the other day, I said to Ginny, I can't work out how such a small sippy cup can get everything so wet. And feeding the little one was like turning on a blender while forgetting to attach the lid. As parents, we spend the first 18 months of our child's life teaching them to walk and talk, and the next 18 years teaching them to sit down and listen. Can't find your kids? Don't worry. Just sit on the toilet. They'll find you straight away. I particularly like this one. During an argument, a 14-year-old in a tone of defiance asked his father if he was adopted. With a sly grin, the dad replied, no, not yet, but we have placed the ad. With all this said, the truth is, if need be, most parents wouldn't hesitate to risk their own life to save their child. And if they saw their son or daughter with a genuine need, they would do whatever they could to meet that need. Regarding needs, 2 significant ones we all have are the need to know that we're valued and the need to know that we belong. Being secure in these is like the anchor that keeps our soul from being swept away by the storms of life and broken against the rocks of despair and worthlessness. These needs are known to be largely met in our childhood by our parents. It's interesting to understand that primarily it's mothers who meet the need for nurture and belonging, like we were just talking about, and fathers who meet the need for worth and value. Not long ago, I was talking to a teenager about how his life was going. While asking him about his family, he said, I don't have a father, he left years ago, but that's never bothered me. If I saw him on the street, I'd smash him in the face. It wasn't hard to see this young man was deeply hurt over the absence of a dad in his life. I remember reading a story of how, with Mother's Day approaching, a prison warden decided to make Mother's Day cards available to the inmates. All these cards were taken and posted off. With this success, as Father's Day approached, the warden now made Father's Day cards available. Not one of them were taken. One of the questions a boy subconsciously seeks to answer is, have I got what it takes? Am I good enough? One of the questions a girl subconsciously seeks to answer is, am I worthy of being loved? Am I worthy of being pursued? The conclusions we come to here will go a long way to determining the life we live. As I mentioned earlier, raising children is a messy business, and as parents, we make mistakes along the way. Don't underestimate the deep healing that can be found in reaching out with a sincere apology to those we may have hurt. I am so sorry can be the most powerful words of healing we could ever give or receive.
That'd be a good start, the words "I'm sorry."
Yeah.
But I don't think that's a cure, though, is it?
No.
So it's like, okay, I accept that you're sorry, but I'm still living with this.
Sure.
You know, the young man that, my father left when I was a kid, but it doesn't bother me. But if I saw him, I'd smack him.
Yeah.
Well, yes, it does bother you.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's an indicator of the deep wound, isn't it? So in a general sense, a father, the wound that a father can bring across to their child is the wound of, am I good enough? Have I got what it takes? That's in a general sense.
Yeah.
And it's the father that can come back to answer that question. And I'll go forward and then come back. And we as Christians have the Father.
Yeah.
That's the beautiful thing. We are now able to orientate ourselves to the Father. And as a man, I can hear the Father say, of course you have what it takes. As a woman, the Father can speak to the woman and say, you are my beloved daughter, of course you're worth pursuing.
Yes.
And that helps orientate us back to that. And so from that point of view, God is able to restore us back to the original image we were created in.
It's not, I mean, number one, I'm going, why do we have this incredible need for significance? Why do I have to feel that I'm worth something? I mean, it must be something that God's created into us, but we all have it. And you can sit there and you can overanalyze that and you go, oh, it's pride, I need to be more humble and everything. But it's there within each of us. I have to know that I'm worth something.
Yeah. When we were created to live in the Garden of Eden, it was paradise. It was beautiful. God walked with us in that garden, and our significance was not in question.
Yeah.
Because we saw the Creator, we walked with Him, we experienced His love, we had interaction with each other and with our Creator. And so we had a knowing about that was deep and profound.
Probably not a conscious one, though, would it be? It'd be
in the garden, I'm not so sure.
Be like a subconscious.
That's right. It was just
the fact that
knowing.
God's with us. We know.
It's a knowing, isn't it? We know what we know. Now that we're not in the garden and we live in a broken world, then that has been damaged, and so therefore that is missing. And so because that is missing, we need to go looking for it.
Yeah.
And it's in the going looking for it that the goal is to orientate ourselves back to where the security of that comes from. And when we don't do that, which basically is all of us, Rob, we're all born looking in the wrong direction. When we don't do that, then we look at ourselves in the mirror and we say, well, I don't have what it takes. I'm not worth pursuing. I'm not worthy of being loved.
I remember, and I don't know if I mentioned this previously, one of my problems is I have so many stories and anecdotes that I keep using them over and over and over. But Gary Smalley, in one of his marriage seminars, and he had this little light bulb with a extension cord, and he says what we do is we go around, we try and get our light bulb to go and we plug it into Alan because he's a good counselor, so he's going to make me feel significant. But then what I end up doing is, and the bulb goes dimmer and dimmer. I've burned Alan out, so I'll go and find a girlfriend, or I'll go and this. He says what we need to do is we need to plug it into God. But often our understanding of God as Father, and I remember a song on Rima, and one of the lyrics was, I can't, it's like, because of what's happened in my life, I can't call you Father, so can I just call you friend? So our understanding, if you had an abusive father, an absent father, or whatever father, that tailors your understanding of God the Father.
It absolutely does. And I think from a spiritual point of view, that's where the battle is.
Yeah.
Is reconnecting to who the Father truly is, who He claims He is, not who we perceive Him to be because of the damage that's been inflicted on us via, a male adult role model / father.
So that's not just lies about me, is it? That's lies. I'm not just believing lies about me. I'm now believing lies about who God is
Yeah.
as the Father, and
Yeah.
I'm basing that on my natural father, whether I knew him or not.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's another lie to get rid of.
Yeah. That's
So I've just created lots of extra work for you.
well, like one of my lines, Robin, I would have said it probably numbers of times in the podcast we've had, is that the whole quest of our life is to regain the original image we were created in.
Yeah.
And so, what is the original image? Well, the original image, I'm a son or a daughter of the living God who loves me.
Yeah.
That's the original image. So that's the quest of our life. And I think that is what it is all about. And so anything that's getting in the way of that, we need to recognise that and get it out of the way. Before lockdown happened, I was going to a local prison to run a program, probably 3 times a year, and was what did we call that? Making your mind your friend for the inmates.
Okay. Yep.
And one day, going to this prison, it was a cold, frosty morning, and I got the seminar or the little meeting started about 9:30, I think, and so I was there about 9 o'clock, and so the frost was still down. It was very, very cold, and in this particular wing of this particular prison, it was built in the 50s, and it was made of concrete walls and iron bars.
Concrete block and yeah.
It literally was. So it was very, very cold. Even in summer it was cold, let alone what it felt like in the middle of winter in a frosty morning. And so we go into this large room. The guard takes me into the large room, and he's attempting to get the heater going, and the inmates are walking in, and the heater's not going to go.
Okay.
But he's making a valiant attempt because he needs to be trying to do something, because the inmates are not going to be happy. And so I'm in there, and the inmates are walking in, and they're looking around, and I won't use their language, but you'll get what I mean. It's effing cold in here, get the effing heater going. And the guard's having a crack at that. And I look at the inmates and I say to them, imagine the heater was going, how would you be feeling? And I caught the guard out of the corner of my eye, look at me, and he rolls his eyes back as if to say, don't wind these guys up, mate. They don't need to be wound up. And so I pursued it a bit further. I said, okay, imagine the heater is going here. How would you be feeling? Or it would be effing warm, wouldn't we? I said, yeah, okay. So now it's warm in this room. Now I want you to imagine you're not in this room anymore. You're out there in the hallway. What do you need to do to get warm? And they had some very creative ideas I hadn't thought of. But ultimately, they came up with the one that I was thinking of, which was to open the door and to walk into where the warmth is.
Yep.
So I said to them, okay, whose job is it? Is it the heater's job to find you out there? Or is it your job to come to where the heat already is, the warmth already is? Well, no, of course it's our job to come to where the warmth is. It's there, so it's our role to come in. I said, okay, good. And so I just took it a little further. I looked at them and I said, okay, who here wants love, joy and peace? And these are, big, burly, tatted up guys. Who here wants love, joy and peace? And all of them, without exception, of course we effing do.
Yeah.
And I said, God claims to be the source of that love, joy and peace. He's made himself available.
Yeah.
Perhaps the reason you're not experiencing it is because you're a little far away than you should be.
You're standing out in the corridor refusing to come in.
Exactly. I encourage you to come in because he's made himself available. Yeah. I never took it any further than that, but because I wasn't there for that. I was there to help them make their mind their friend and not to not to go down that track. But I did make the most of that moment for them.
It's
because the closer we get to the source of life, and I guess that's my point, the closer we get to the source of life, the closer we get to God, the more we are actually genuinely able to experience him as he truly is, not as our perception perceives him to be.
Yeah.
And there are things that get in the way of that, absolutely, and that's the role of a pastor and a counsellor and a community of faith and those sorts of things.
It's not going to happen overnight. It's to quote Rachel Hunter, it's we learn by rote. In the classroom we had 2 + 2 is 4 and 3 + 3 is 6, and we learn that by rote. And it's what we've learned, these lies that I'm believing about myself, I've learned because as a child they were repeated over and over and over. My perception Whether it was intended or not, my perception has put that lie in. You can't just go, oh, no, actually, Alan, you are significant. And go, oh, bang, great, I'm fixed. Yeah. It needs that repeated over and over. And again, I said the weekend a couple of times, to me, the significance, to understand the love of the Father, it's like, imagine that you're walking into the throne room of God, right? The elders and the beasts and the angels are there, and they're all, God's just running the whole universe and everything, and you're sort of like a little kid sneaking between the wings and under there, and God's sitting on the throne, and he sees you, and he just goes, and so you sneak around the back of the throne, and you jump up onto his knee, onto his lap, and he just puts his arm around it. He's still continuing to run the universe, right? And he just bends down, he kisses you on the head, and he goes, I love you so much. Go and play. We need that reinforced over and over and over. Yeah. We've got to make the decision to come in, but it's got to be reinforced. It's not a one-off.
No, it isn't. And that's why we need each other.
Yeah.
And that's why we actually need to be gentle on each other. Most all of us are fighting some sort of a battle in our being.
Yep.
So let's be gentle on each other. Let's express what that should be looking like. In our lives and through our lives.
Yeah. Was it Ephesians 4:29? I think it's that one. They're building each other up. With positive words.
Yeah.
It's like, you remember? Did you ever play indoor cricket?
No, I've seen it though.
Do you know the rules of indoor cricket?
No.
Okay. So you have a set number of overs that you are in for, right? So you can't go out, right? So you're in for 5 overs. So if somebody bowls you out, you don't actually go out. You just lose 5 runs. So you're in there, you block the ball, no run, right? Hit the ball, good, you get 1 run. Give it a decent hit, you get 2 runs, right? The guy bowls you out, -5. So now you're on -2. So you get another 2 runs, you're back to 0. He bowls you out again, or somebody catches you, you're now on -5. And so often we start in that sense of well-being. Because of those lies, because of our upbringing, we're starting on -150.
Right.
And you're not going to jump to positive runs in one step. It's a slow process. How hard is it to explain that to people that are trying to get out? Because, I mean, you can make the decision, you go, I understand, that whole trace it, face it, and replace it with the lie, right? Like, okay, I understand that what I've been believing about myself is wrong. How hard is it for people to walk through a slow process because we want to be healed like that?
I think it's a bit individual. Depends a little bit on the person's history, maybe even the depth of the wound or the community that they even live in. Because I have varying responses with clients.
Yeah.
Client last night, this is only the second time they've been to me. There's every chance they may not need to come back again now, because he recognised what his belief was. He believed, and I'll say this because it's not exactly what he said, but I'll use this as the term. He believed that he was gormless. So gormless people are not successful. Gormless people just follow along. Gormless people don't lead.
Yeah.
Well, he's being trained to be a leader. And when he recognised that actually that's not the case, he was then able to step into what the truth is. And now he needs to live in that.
Yeah.
And so that's the hard yards, because you've got all these other triggers and these memories and events that you're not used to being involved in because you've always been on the back foot of that.
Yep.
So he needs to allow himself to get a little bit uncomfortable about that. But he now can, because he realises that actually the lie was restricting him, the truth can liberate him. So as long as he walks away from the lie in pursuit of the truth, it's like a wedge, isn't it? You step into the truth and it's fairly narrow there as you stepped into it, because you're not, it's not familiar.
And tight and uncomfortable.
That's right, it's all of that, and unfamiliar and all of that.
Yep.
But as you move into the more, there actually is more.
Yeah.
And so more then becomes available. And so right now, he may not have an understanding of what the more looks like, but if he keeps walking towards it, then he will be able to experience the more that God has for him in his life.
So he's got an initial understanding that was a lie he was believing, and that there is more to him, and yet doesn't have the skills yet to be that leader. Or
That's
to
good.
lead,
Yeah.
Because
Well,
that's the other. I think the other danger is it's like people that have depression, clinical depression, and they're taking medication for it. What happens when you take your medication for your depression? You feel better, so you go, "Oh, great, I'm better. I don't need my medication anymore." So you can also make that mistake, I suppose, of going, "Oh, thanks, Alan, won't need you anymore."
Right.
And 12 months later.
Is if the truth is robust, which the goal is, the truth is very robust.
Yes.
That's the goal.
Yep.
If the truth is robust and you own the robustness of that truth and you are intentional about pursuing that, there's a concept I really like. Very, very simple. Try, fail, learn, grow. That's it.
Yep.
Try, fail, learn, grow. When we were born, we didn't know how to walk. How do you learn to walk? Well, you try. You make a mistake.
Yep.
And that helps orientate you in your brain. You realise, well, that didn't work. I've got to try that a bit different. And so you try, you fail, you learn, you grow.
Yeah.
And then you try, you fail, you learn, you grow. And so, and that's the trajectory. Anybody that's successful, that's how they got to be successful.
It's interesting. There's an avant-garde musician called Laurie Anderson, and one of her songs, she says, walking is just falling and catching yourself.
Right, that's good.
So walking is actually failing and learning, right? I'm falling. Oh no, I've learned how to catch myself and stop myself from falling. And so it's what you're saying there is we need to learn how to not fail, but we learn that by failing.
Well, yeah. If I believe I'm a failure, I won't try so hard.
That's right.
And if I did try a little bit and I failed, because that's what happens, you always get to the end of yourself. That's progress, isn't it? You always get to the end of what you know, and then you make a mistake, and so then you fall. A person that believes they're a failure, they either won't take themselves to the extent they should, or if they do, they'll just determine in their soul, they'll say to themselves, I'm never going to do that again because that's ugly. Because failure made me feel so insignificant, made me feel so useless. Maybe it set me up to be completely embarrassed. Whereas when we realise actually failure is not fatal, it's just feedback.
Yeah.
It's just an opportunity to learn when we can orientate ourselves to realise that, this is the process for life.
Yeah.
And like this guy that believed what he believed about himself, when he recognised actually that's not telling the truth, so therefore I can reach beyond myself and still make a mistake, and in that mistake is my learning. Try, fail, learn. And in my learning, I grow. And in my growing, I'm on a different trajectory now towards the more that's available to me.
Yeah, and the learning is, I think back to my sister-in-law who years ago started making pavlovas. And some of us, we loved it because she failed so many times. So we had to eat the failures.
Yeah.
But it's like if you make the pavlova and fail, and you do the same thing and fail, but you don't actually learn that what you haven't beaten the egg whites enough.
Yeah.
That so I'll beat, and then now it's too hard. You go, okay, so I need to make sure I've beaten the egg whites just enough, but not too much.
Yeah.
That's the learning process.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's a time thing. If you don't know that you're supposed to learn from it, you'll just keep doing the failure thing, and you'll get that, I'm no good, I can't do it.
And if you believe the lie about yourself that you are a failure, you are dumb, you are useless, then you won't extend yourself anyway. What's the line that I really like? I don't know if I'm going to remember it now. The danger in life is not aiming too high and missing it. It's aiming too low and reaching it.
Yeah.
In other words, what that means is it's if we set our sights too low and we reach it, we'll think, well, that's near enough is good enough. That's enough for me. But to be honest, that's actually quite a sad way to live life. We've got one shot at life.
Yeah.
Let's make it a good shot.
I think there's a place for that, but only if you have the right attitude about yourself and about God and everything. One of the mechanics in Caddy, he simply does warrants of fitness and tune-ups.
Sure.
That's all he wants to do. I went to him and said, Vaughan, I've got a problem with my shockies. He goes, go there. I'm not interested. I don't want to be the best known mechanic in town. I don't want to employ 10 mechanics and make millions of dollars.
Yeah.
I want to come to work at possibly 8:30, maybe 9 o'clock on a Tuesday morning and leave at 3 o'clock and pick my boy up from school. That's all I want to do.
Sure.
But to do that because you don't think you can do the other part, that's
where if that person came to me, I would unpack that to see why.
Yeah.
And if the motive was, well, this to me is still a significant life, I'd say, well, go for it.
Yeah.
Good on you.
Yeah.
But if the motive was, well, I don't think I can achieve any more than this.
Or every time I tried, I failed, and I did that once and went bankrupt. And how important is a good mentor, and not necessarily a counselor or a pastor, but somebody to walk along to help you into the position that position's probably the wrong word, or that you should be in. I'm thinking of my friend David Morris, who's a worship leader. He was great. He's a great singer and songwriter. He was understudy to Graham Kendrick, and his experience was very much like the same as Darlene Check's with Jeff Bullock.
Right.
Is both of them. Graham Kendrick's getting ready for a praise concert, and he simply goes, "David, you're leading tonight."
Right.
5 minutes beforehand.
Yeah.
It's not like you've got three weeks to prepare.
Right.
But it's Graham going, okay, I've been actually watching you.
Yeah.
And you're ready to step up. How important is it to have somebody like that?
Yeah, it's really important. If I had a whiteboard, I'll try and describe it, because we don't have a whiteboard and some people are only listening anyway, so my hands are going to go everywhere and no one's going to see that. It's called the 5-pointed star of change. Mm-hmm. There are five things needed in life for change to have any chance of happening and happening well. The first point in the star, that's why it's called a 5-pointed star. Yep. It's just a 5-pointed star. So the first point is hope, where you need to look at your life and say, okay, I'm not happy where I am. I actually want that. Hope, something more than what I've got, a goal to aim for, a reason to apply some effort.
Yep.
Because change requires effort. So you say, no, I'm willing to apply effort for that. So we need hope. Another one we need is support, which is the person you're talking
about. The mentor, somebody alongside you.
The person that will come alongside you. So when you fall over, they come alongside you and they say, you've got what it takes. You did better this time than you did last time. Don't forget the goal. Don't believe the lie, whatever. That's support. That's good support. Not drinking buddy support, good solid support.
If you talk about tripping over, falling over, is this person helping you back up, or are they encouraging you to get back up?
Or they could be both, to be honest.
Because I say to my grandkids all the time when something like that happens, well, I'm not your mother. You know how to stand up after you've fallen over.
Good support is someone that can recognise what's probably needed at that very point in time. So you need hope, support. You need guidance, which is the how-tos. Maybe counsel, good books, things like that. So guidance, because if you don't know how to, you've got to find out how to, don't you?
Yeah.
And so that's it. That's the how-tos. So that's hope, support, guidance. We need self-awareness, which is a lot of what we've been talking about over the podcast, is that realisation, that's what's causing me to trip over. So we need self-awareness. The other one we need, and this one is the interest. Well, they're all interesting and they're all important, but I leave this one to last because it's actually pain. We need pain, because how easy is it to change? It's not easy to change. And so therefore change is uncomfortable. Yeah. So we need to be able to find ourselves in a more uncomfortable situation where staying the same becomes more uncomfortable than change.
Yeah. So where you are more prepared to accept the pain of change,
Correct,
than the languidity or whatever the word is of staying where you are.
Yeah, exactly. And and for some people, that pain threshold, unfortunately, can be very high.
My niece did a post update, status update years ago. She goes, number one, go to the gym, do my normal workout, get really worn out, feel good for the rest of the day. Option number two, go to the gym, personal trainer sees me, does his workout, can't walk for 3 days. She goes, I'll choose option two. I mean, this is why you have personal trainers and your spotter in the gym is to push you a little bit harder than what you think you can do.
Yeah.
And if I'm doing, if I do exercise, I always count down. So if I'm going to do 20 push-ups, I'm not going to start it and go 1, 2. I'm going to start 20, 19, 18. Because in my mind, that I've got that goal to get to. If I do it the other way, I go, I'll stop at 15. Oh, I'm so sore, I can't do any more. I know there's people probably laughing at the moment and going, what, only 15, Rob? But so what you're saying, so the 5 points are?
We need hope.
Something to strive for, and that I can do it.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Not
an unrealistic
pie in
goal.
the sky, but that's what I want. I want that. So I'm willing to apply some effort to achieve that. So that's hope.
Yeah, and I may not be the best in the world at doing that or whatever, but I can do this.
Absolutely. And it's not about being the best in the world.
No.
It's about doing your best.
About doing what you do.
Yeah. Hope, support. Which is the big person, the person that you actually want to want the validation from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's tricky
too. A person in your life. So what I'm not saying here, it's not just someone that'll say, oh, you'll be all right, but someone that you actually are willing, when they validate you, you feel validated by them because you're needing validation from them.
Yeah,
and
that's kind of hard to find something. I mean, we've talked a bit about my psyche, and we're not going to do that on camera. But as a worship leader, if I have another, say, a well-known worship leader who was in the congregation at the time and says, "I really enjoyed that session, I really enjoyed that." That means a lot more to me than somebody going, "Oh, that was really good."
Yeah.
Because it's somebody who I would accept that from, as opposed to just,
So it's a big person in our life. That's what we're looking for.
So
hope, support, which is a big person in your life. Guidance, which is the how-tos, counsel, that sort of thing. Gaining self-awareness, that realization that, okay, there's stuff in the way here. What's the saying? It says, if you stop every time you hear a dog bark, your road will never end. And what that simply means, if the dog represents a danger or a fear or, a sense of failure maybe, well, I'm not going to go there.
Yep.
So you need to have an awareness that, okay, that's something I need to work on. And that then can come back to the counsellor to help you with that. But that self-awareness is really important. And then the final one is
the pain. Yeah.
Pain. And I'm often, one of my roles with clients is to dangle them a little bit over hell when they're on a road that's taking them somewhere. I say to them, if drinking is causing problems, you have a drinking problem. Do you have a drinking problem? Is drinking causing problems?
Yeah.
Oh, flip. Now you put it like that. Yes, it is. If anger is causing problems, you actually have an anger problem. Is anger causing problems?
That's an interesting way of looking at it, because if you go to the drinking, you go, well, it's not a drinking problem. I don't drink that much. I don't always get drunk.
Sure.
But if the drinking is causing problems,
you have a drinking problem.
That's a drinking problem.
Yeah. So it just helps reorientate it. And clients, and I need reorientating. I have my views of what I think is okay, and someone else can come along and give me a view that I need to consider. That's really healthy.
Yeah.
We've got blind spots. I want people to challenge me. If they see something in my life, as long as it's a close enough person,
Yep.
not just somebody on the outside throwing a rock at me, but I want a close enough person to say, Alan, I'm noticing in these situations, these sorts of things are happening. I've seen it happen more than once. Do you think there's something there for you to look at? And I would like to think I'm willing enough to say, I actually do need to think about that. But we're human, aren't we?
Yep. Yes, no.
That's right.
I'm fine. I'm a counsellor.
What's the first response we give to anything? No, not me.
Not me. Yeah.
Wasn't me.
Yeah. But that's not being honest with ourselves, and that's not helping us to grow at all.
Not at all.
I always think of I know it comes back to the father wound, but in the end of Malachi, it talks about Elijah will come and he will bring the hearts of the fathers to the children and the hearts of the children to the fathers. When we look at God wanting that relationship with us and providing us the image of himself as a father, I have to go, those wounds are instigated by Satan. And do I really want to hold on to that Satan has specifically and purposely, almost as a sniper, he's known exactly where to hit me with?
It's absolutely right. I mean, I think we talked about maybe even in the first podcast that the only access the devil has into our life is through the lies we believe.
Yeah.
That's a profound thought, that the only way the enemy can get at us is through something I believe that's counter to what God would believe. You know, the word sin simply means anything God doesn't agree with. Sin is anything God doesn't agree with.
Yeah.
So if I believe that I'm useless and God says I'm not, then I would say that's error, that's sin.
Yeah.
Not sin as in God saying you disgust me, but sin as in we need to orientate ourselves back to what the truth is.
Yeah.
Because it's the truth that sets us free. So that's the whole quest, as I often keep coming back to.
And Jeremiah often says, God says through Jeremiah, I rose early sending the prophets to call you back to me, to say, please, in this case, it's change your actions, but your actions are guided by your thoughts. So please change, get rid of that sin and come back to me.
Yeah.
And that's God's heart. He created us for that relationship with him, and Satan wants to destroy us.
Well, the word repentance, we see it as an army term, or some of us can see it as an army term. What is repentance? I was at a church meeting. I'm being vague now.
It's just like, how do I say this so that nobody can identify the church or the person? Yeah.
I was at a church meeting where there was a baptism. I had nothing to do with the baptism. I just happened to be there. And there were two big fellas being baptised, which was beautiful.
Yeah.
And you could tell, I didn't know them, but you could tell even by the look of them that they'd had a rough background. And they'd had a change of, Christ had obviously come and entered into their life. And the pastor, before they were going into to be baptised, the pastor brought a message, and he was speaking to these men. And he said, you need to turn from your sin and start doing what's right and leave what's wrong. And it sounded okay, but I was a bit upset by it. There's nothing I could do. It wasn't my role anyway. The reason I was upset by it was because the word sin, so the word repentance isn't just simply about turning around and going another way. Because we call it an army term where repent, about face, we go a different way. I was going this way. I was living a life that was harmful. Well, harmful. Getting in the way of true life. And so then I turn and go another way. So repentance is to turn back and go a different way. I actually like Derek Prince's version of what repentance is. Repentance is to change your mind. Repentance is to say the way I was going actually led to destruction. Actually was no good for me, no good for my family, no good for my community. And it was horrible. The food was horrible. The lifestyle was horrible. We need to see it like that. And then we turn and we say, and I'm changing my mind. I'm going the way that leads to life, that leads to love, that leads to joy, that leads to peace. And that's quite different than just trying to grin and bear it and turn a different way while you're still looking back at what you thought was actually a lifestyle that had some appeal.
It's interesting in the Western mindset that we have. If you use New Testament versus Old Testament, the Greek repent is that mind change. The Hebrew understanding actually combines both. It's the mind change and the actions change.
Good.
So if you just change your actions but you don't agree with it, it's like somebody goes, "Oh, you need to go to the gym," so you go, you know. For many years, I mean, I was 162 kilos. Right, because I thought that's not going to bother me. I don't need to eat right and I don't need to exercise. And all of a sudden I jump on the scales and it goes one at a time, you know. And so I repented and realized that I needed to eat better and I did need to exercise. And 10 years later, I was still 162 kilos.
Right.
Because I'd done it in my mind. I hadn't done it with the actions. And it's got to be both. And every time I'd tried it with just the actions, because I hadn't repented in my mind that my eating habits and my exercise habits were wrong, I'd go to the gym and I'd stop and I'd try this and I'd stop because it wasn't combine the two things together.
Yeah. Yeah, the other Derek Prince line is, God will deliver you from your enemies, not your friends.
Yeah.
So when we recognise that lifestyle is an enemy,
Yes.
even though the food might taste all right, it's actually killing me.
Yeah.
You know, every smoke I have is, 10 minutes off my life.
Yeah.
You know, that sort of mindset. Then you're getting, there's more of a chance of you being able to say, no, I actually hate that. There's only one thing an addict needs. It's possibly a little unfair. The most important thing an addict needs to recognise is that this addiction is my enemy.
Yeah.
Like genuinely my enemy.
It's not my friend. I'm not okay.
No. And when an addict, which is all of us to some degree, so I'm not, when an addict is able to say, no, I actually hate this. Well, what will you do to get rid of it? I'll do whatever it takes. Okay, now we're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
Because, the one convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. You can, as a counsellor, I can convince somebody of something, and on the inside they're saying yes, and on the outside they're saying yes.
Yeah.
On the inside they're saying, nah, I still like what I do.
That's right. Yeah.
And so that's the dangling them over hell bit, where I take me and my own thinking, Alan, this way of thinking, this attitude you have, where will that take you if you keep up with this attitude? And I'm reasonably well aware enough to be able to take myself down that road. And I look down there and I say, okay, is that good for me? Is that good for my family? Is that good for my community? And is it a reasonable representation of Christ, who I actually represent? And often the answer to that is no, and then it gets blimmin' hard.
Yeah.
Because
then it's done. Now I have to do something.
Well, it's absolutely right. Yeah. And as I said to my supervisor a little while ago, I was having a bit of, not a moan, but unpacking stuff. Yes. Supervision.
It's also called moan.
And I said, David, why is it so, why don't people change? Why is it so hard for them to change? And he just looked at me and he said, why is it so hard for you to change? It's the same question, It's hard for us to make change.
Thanks, David.
So it's hard for us to change. And so when we recognise that, it helps us be a bit more gentle on those that we're supporting too.
When you talk about being an addict too, in our minds we think of cigarettes, drugs, alcohol, whatever. But I came across somebody the other day, and just listening to this person and talking about the way they prayed. They were talking about the way they prayed, and I'm going, you are addicted to controlling prayers.
Right.
Everything you have told me is you didn't like this, so you prayed, and you didn't like that, and you prayed, and often it's out loud in front of other people, and I'm going, well, that's not healthy either. It may not be cocaine or pee, but this thing that even, and maybe we can touch on this because we're going to run out of time shortly, but maybe next time we could look at some of the spiritual sides of our life that, again, is when we go back to that lie that we're believing, that's affecting our ministry and just our Christian life.
Well, in Corinthians, 2 Corinthians, isn't it? I think it says, we take every thought captive and make it obedient to Christ. What are the thoughts we have that are not obedient to Christ? What are the mindsets we have that allow the enemy in and restrict God?
Yeah.
Because the lies we believe give the devil access into our life. In the same way, the truth we receive gives God access to our life. So if we're on a crusade to root out lies in our life, and on a crusade to replace the lie with the truth, let's see what you look like in a year's time.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is replacing. I mean, you talk about Derek Prince. He talks about Proverbs, and most of us have heard this. There's 31 chapters in Proverbs, one for every day of the month. If you actually read the appropriate chapter on each day for 12 months, you would be wiser at the end of 12 months than you are now, just because you've received this extra information. So it's allowing God that access. And to quote Rachel Hunter again, it's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah.
Or it may, but it probably won't.
Yeah.
But you do that on the regular basis. Do it as rote learning. And in 12 months of allowing God access, you may be very, very surprised to see where you've got to.
You will be, won't you? It's if you make 1 degree of change in your life over 12 months' time, if you projected where you would have been if you hadn't made that change, and you make 1 degree of change, that's a big chunk of stuff.
Yeah. After that period of time.
After that, as long as you're walking in that degree of change.
Same as losing weight. You don't lose 60 kilos like, liposuction you might, but generally you don't. You lose half a kilo, half a kilo. But after 12 months, add those half a kilos a week.
Yeah, that incremental change makes a huge difference over a period of time.
Yeah. All right, Alan, thank you again for coming in and joining us, and we hope that you have been encouraged. If you'd like to contact Alan, then simply click the details down below, and we will catch you next time.
I look forward to that. Thank you, Rob.